Amanda, thank you so much for joining me here on the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. I really appreciate it. We are going to talk about some really great things today. But before we get started, would you please introduce yourself to my guests, my listeners? I'm sorry, my guests, my guys, everybody's on the podcast today.
Yes, Gina, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you allowing me to share my message with your audience, and I'm excited to chat with you today. I've been listening to some of your stuff. So I am a wife. I'm a mother of three. I have been a financial professional my entire adult life. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, except for 1 year fresh out of college. And, I started to do things the wrong way, the hard way, and I've learned from those lessons, and now I get to share, the better way to, give others a shortcut.
Into their financial success, right? Into their financial freedom. Now, I peeked one of the messages you wrote, and you were actually going into fitness, right?
Yeah.
And so what made you switch gears?
So I don't know that it was more of a side hustle. And what it was is that I was a burnt out mother entrepreneur, and I needed to change something. And of course, my outlet turned out to being health and fitness. And I thought, cool, I can just do this social media thing as a health and fitness influencer and see where that goes. Well, in doing that, I went to some health and fitness conferences, bumped shoulders with a bunch of other influencers, and we realized how big of a financial mess people are really in, especially in this entrepreneur space. I'm not the only one, right? And so in doing that, I got asked a lot more about finances than I ever did about health and fitness. I love health and fitness. It's part of who I am. It's a part of my values. But ultimately, where my gifts lie are where my struggles initially were. And I realized that I was able to make a lot more impact by helping these fellow women and entrepreneurs with the financial side of running their business, of, getting a foundation set, of really that whole concept of financial freedom, like getting to the point where we're working because we want to work, not because we have to pay our bills.
I love that was so beautiful, because of course I love all of my fitness friends. I love all of the fitness inspiration I have, because it's also one of my values, and I do love that. And so I can understand where you were coming from to probably feel like, wait a minute, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And now all of a sudden you've got this like aha moment. Were you doubting yourself in that moment? I want to take everyone to that moment, because I think you just touched on something that is completely relatable across the board here for moms our age, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where we felt burnt out and we needed something, we needed an outlet. And I think that's because I like to say it's because we are leaving things on the table, right? I like to call it, you feel that push, because right now maybe I'm giving 70%, but I know Gina, and I know Gina can give 100%. And so I've left 30% on the table, and that's that nudge inside me. That 30% is that nudge inside me. So I want to just go back real quick to when you made that switch. Was it scary? Was it, no, that's not right, stick with what you know? I mean, finances, so I knew you know that, but what was that battle, the internal battle you had in that moment of switching from fitness to finance?
I guess I had always had sort of this, what is the right word? Conflict in the financial sense. I kind of found myself in this role of entrepreneur, building a financial services agency from the ground up as a new mother. And my why at that time for doing that is because I was in this W-2 position where I had this career that I went to school for, that I put my heart and soul into, that ultimately had zero flexibility. And I was a new mother at the time, and I had to be faced with the decision to miss my 2-year-old's surgery. He was always sick with tonsils and this and that and needed the tonsil surgery. And I know as a mother of 3 now, it's not that big of a procedure. But when you're a brand new young mother, it's a huge deal to miss something like that. And ultimately, my mother-in-law had to go in my place and I couldn't go because I had to work. And that was that moment that I was like, I am not going to be faced with this moment again. And that's what I guess pushed me into being an entrepreneur. And I've always kind of had this push, like I will work so hard, but it's going to be for the right direction, for my purpose, for my family, for a mission. It's going to be a bigger why. And so anytime I felt like I was hitting this, I guess, glass ceiling, so to speak, I felt like it's time for that shift. And with my insurance agency, I had done that for many years. I had pushed through this dynamic in a, woman in a man's world of growing something out of nothing and being one of the top, owners in the state of our kind. And so I kind of got to this, I was hitting all the trips, I was hitting all the bonuses, I was doing all the things. And I just felt like my time there was done. Like I got everything that I can get out of this. And it's a super great opportunity for somebody, but I was ready for a change. And I guess I've never been afraid to build the plane while it's flying, so to speak. That's, right. I think, can be a bad trait, but I guess my husband is a very much dot the I's, cross the T's guy, and I'm very much like, we'll figure it out. And so we kind of complement each other that way. But ultimately, I felt that pull again. And I felt, there's something different out there for me. And what does that look like? And health and fitness was a natural progression because I was getting asked about it by a lot of other mothers that were struggling. And ultimately, I think it was God's way of saying, I want you in this world, but not in the way that you think you need to be in it. I want you to share your story. I want you to get vulnerable and uncomfortable and share that thing that's really hard for you to talk about. And I was very resistant to it. And when I did, it went viral and it blew up and I realized, wow, this is definitely where I definitely need to be. And so I've been here for, in this health and fitness or not health and fitness, but in this, so we do a lot of financial help or financial organization for health and fitness entrepreneurs. And I've been in this world for the last 5 years. So
very cool. Very cool. I am so glad that you are. I'm so glad that you listen to your inner voice, your intuition, your God-given gifts. You embraced those and made this happen. And you brought your worlds together, right? You made it the best of both worlds for you. I'm not going to let you belittle that you couldn't be there for that little guy. Because that's, even with our 3rd kid, even with our 5th kid, I mean, we just have that when your value is family, that's the path you've chosen. And so that's a hurt. And obvious it was because that was your why to say, because women won't usually, and not just women, anybody, human nature is you won't usually change what you're comfortable in, even if it's yucky and toxic and hurts until the hurt is bad enough that the unknown is more appealing. Right.
Yeah. I would totally agree. And I think it's one of those things where we get in our minds, and I especially did that, oh my gosh, I literally have this degree for this specific line of work, and am I just going to throw it away, so to speak, and go do this completely different thing out of a year of doing this, right? And so that was kind of my biggest reason to conflict that change. And I think that we put those boundaries and borders on ourselves oftentimes. And at the end of the day, like, we're not going to make silly mistakes, right? Like silly changes. And, I tried something for, a month and it's not working, but when we really intentionally feel that pull, I think we have to listen.
Yeah. And you're right. We're not. We're just the fact that you are a mother and you've got these littles that are depending on you and that you're putting them first. We don't make decisions lightly. Everything in our brain, all of the noise and chaos in our brain is all of these like millions of questions that we're asking ourselves, which direction is going to be the best way to go for our families. So yeah, these decisions aren't silly ones. So when we make the decisions, it's not lightly. It's not like we think down to what we're putting in their mouths, I mean, every little decision is so important to us, which is good. It's amazing. That's what we're bred for. So because I love that you are in the fitness world, because that's probably what brought me to you in the first place, not going to lie, as I probably saw one of your beautiful posts on your account and I was like, oh, wait, what's she doing? But I speak to stay-at-home moms and working moms, women who, like I've been saying, value families, hold their values as number one. So for this episode, I know we've talked about it. I really want to dive into what some practical and empowering tips are for women. Let's start with stay-at-home moms because they have a very specific role to play in the finances, in the budgeting, in these kind of decisions that are being made for their families. Because sometimes women don't feel that way. They don't feel like they have control because they're not bringing in the paycheck. But there is a lot that goes on with running a household and being able to tips, tricks, budgeting, to go about their days.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely think that is so important to talk about, whether you're a working mother that makes less than your husband or whether you're a stay-at-home mother that doesn't bring in income. That is such an important note to take. And it's very important for you to have an equal role in the financial piece. And one thing that frustrates me is this whole persona of girl math, or my husband takes care of that, or I'm not allowed to, fill in the blank. And so, or I don't know anything about our finances. My husband does it. And I think that we are really doing ourselves a disservice, and we're honestly putting ourselves in a difficult position by expressing ourselves that way. And that is one of the things that I would love to navigate and seek change in our, I guess, culture as women, that we equally should be part of the financial picture, whether you're financially contributing to the household or not. It's important because there would be daycare, there would be housekeeping, et cetera, right? There would be a laundry list of things that would be due financially if you didn't have that role that you have. And so we need to appreciate that, and we need to own that. And I think, number one, if you are not aware of how the finances work in your home. So I wrote out a list of 5, but then my brain got to turning here. But I would
love it. I'm going to write down with you.
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, if you are the wife whose husband takes care of it all and you have no idea, you need to ask him, could you please, next time you sit down and do the budgeting or the finances, I want to be there with you. Go have an equal role in that. That should be something that you do together. And if that is something you do together, that's fantastic. Your goals should be made together, right? Everything should be togetherness. You're in this together. It's not my husband pays the bills and I take care of the kids, right? It's we sit down and we do our finances together. In fact, that is one of the biggest shifts that I made that made my marriage stronger is we have quarterly goal setting sessions together. We have financial Fridays just to make sure, was my spending out of, the normal this week? Are we going to be surprised at that credit card bill this month, right? It's just so important to be on that same page. And then you won't have this, why did you spend $800 at Costco, right? Then you won't have this, what is this Amazon box again? Oh, great. My wife's going to Target. We'll eliminate a lot of that if we're simply on the same page as our husbands. Our husbands might spend in other areas, such as hunting trips or whatever your husband likes to do.
Right.
But, and oftentimes we're probably not the ones saying, oh, how much was that fishing rod or whatever the case is. So I think it's important that we're just on the same page together. And then when we have a goal together, then we can build a plan for that goal. And this can be somebody that is married, that has a great marriage. Maybe your marriage is suffering because of the finances. Most divorces are because of the financial situation at home. And so it might be very difficult. In fact, this is honestly, I want to say it was like 2015. I thought we were going to be getting divorced because of the financial situation I had ourselves in. And I came to him and I said, hey, here's what's going on. I am terrified to have this conversation with you right now. And I'm still a stand on my own 2 feet kind of woman, and I worked really hard and was able to pay all that off very quickly. But I think it's important that we communicate that with our significant other. So when we have those goals, like I said, we do quarterly, but figure out what works best for you. Then you can build your plan. And then I think number one, building your plan is setting those budgets. What's a realistic, if you do love to shop at Amazon or Sephora or whatever that is, what is a realistic budget that you both can agree on, right? If your husband's being unreasonable with your spending, why do you feel like you need $400, $500, $600 a month, wherever? And have those conversations together. Build your budget accordingly. And so that would be number one. I know that was a big number one.
Well, and also it's like you said, I want to really, really, really put the spotlight on what your goals are. Because if your goals are completely different, you have different ideas. Oh, sorry. I feel a sneeze coming on. Oh, no, we're good. If you have completely different goals, if your husband is in his brain, which my husband explains to me a lot, he breaks it down what's going on in his brain, what he's seeing. So he's looking like 20 years in advance with budgeting, right? So he's looking at this way bigger picture, and I'm maybe looking at 1 year in advance. I mean, our lifestyle is really different than most. So ours, but it's the same. It's a marriage. We have to talk. And so for me, when he was being this like tyrant about spending and telling me how I was doing everything wrong, and I'm looking at him going, well, you're spending, you're doing these things, whatever, But when we finally came together and he's showing me this overarching goal that he's got, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can't see that bigger picture because you're not letting me see it. So now when we came together, when we lost everything, I mean, that was pretty much like wipe the slate clean.
Yep.
You're $650,000 in debt.
Yep.
Here we go. Where are we going to start to rebuild this? How do we want to do it? Because we've obviously been doing it. Well, obviously is not the, well, yeah, obviously we've been doing it wrong. So how do we want to rebuild? So I really want to spotlight that. You have to be on the same page, or else your husband's going to continue to say, why are all these Amazon boxes coming to the house? Because he's envisioning maybe a new house, a new car down the road, a family vacation, and you're envisioning daily life as it looks to you, right?
And I think that's like so normal for there to be a difference there. And that's why I talk a lot about short-term and long-term goals, because they're both equally important. Short-term is how much are groceries this month, right? Do we want to, like we're taking the kids to Disney in March. Like that was something that we'd been talking about for the last couple of years. And it's a big financial trip because we're, staying at the resort and doing the whole.
Yeah, it's Disney.
Frickin' thing.
We all just saw $10,000 cross across the screen. Yeah, 10 grand. Okay, you're going to Disney. There you go.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where sure, we can just take those things out of savings, but then how does that impact what our financial freedom 20 years from now looks like? Right? How does that impact the acreage that we want to have, when we're empty nesters? So I think it's important that we don't make those impulsive decisions, but we have short-term goals that align with our long-term goals. And that's how we get on the same page. And that might help you as the day-to-day spender realize maybe I don't need that extra pair of shoes. Maybe I don't need that extra outfit that I saw on that cute influencer today. It doesn't mean that I can't afford it. Of course I can afford it, but maybe I don't need it right now.
Well, since I don't want to take you off your path here, so I'm so grateful you have them written down right in front of you, but you just opened a whole can of worms that is my soapbox. You just picked it up and set it down right in front of me. So I feel like I have to jump on top of it.
No other choice.
I have no other choice. Why do we feel like, ladies, that we need all of this stuff? The industry of influencing is crazy. They get paid so much money for these things that they're putting in front of you, and you are taking the bait. You are buying it just because this person you've never met in your life is saying, look at this new shirt, look at this new pair of shoes. You feel like, oh, you're right, you have that, I have to buy it. It's like the turtle effect. I always say that with my kids. It's if one kid has a toy, the other one has to have it. He doesn't even like the toy. He's never picked it up another time in his life, but just as soon as his brother does, he's like, oh wait, that's all of a sudden very interesting to me. I have to have it. What is this desire in us that's that way, right? And what I work on here in the Revitalized Sisterhood, my private coaching community, is getting to the bottom of worth and value of ourselves, because maybe those spending habits are trying to fill a hole that maybe needs to be filled with self-love first.
Yep. And triggers. And I talk a lot. That's what my entire Fit Financial page is about, is triggers. You know, my shopping addiction that I had, and I don't think we ever get over addiction. I think we learn how to navigate it. But it stemmed from a childhood trauma. My brother was killed in a car accident, and we were 10 months apart. And, you know, initially I just tried to make my family feel better by making a good Christmas. And that led into years of, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get these pair of shoes because I realized how warm and fuzzy that made me feel. And then when I started making actual real money, it gets really hard to differentiate the endless budget that you have, you know. And I talk a lot about how when I was making real money for the first time, I got myself into the most debt that I ever have because of not uncovering deep crap that I had issues with. And, you know, that's emotional spending. That's behavioral finance right there. And that's my specialty and expertise. But that's hard stuff that we don't want to talk about because it's easier to click add to cart and stuff my closet and my feelings.
Right. And now you've got the high because you just clicked it, the online, and in 2 days you get another high because it shows up. It's like, now it's double.
And then it gets shoved in the closet and you fill up with anxiety because you have too much crap.
That's the second soapbox. We'll move on to that soapbox later. But okay, so number one, awareness. I absolutely adore that number one is awareness, because even how you said your daily spending, like as far as budgeting goes with your groceries, I'm bad at this. I don't pay attention. My husband's like, you don't even know how much things are. So I've started being more mindful and paying more attention. So yesterday I went to the store and the big crate of eggs was back up to $17 again. And I was like, no, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it. Right. But I was aware that was a thing. When before I would have just grabbed it. I'm like, well, we need eggs. Yeah. And I was like, oh no, the eggs are back up again. I'm not doing it. But if you can realize that the world is different, the world is different from when we went and traveled, when we started in 2017 and we went to Europe and our money went so far. Australia, our money went so far. It was so fun. It was amazing. And then we went just this year or this last year for the year. And it was like, we cannot do as much. Our money is half the worth. Like it's a big difference. So when you're at the grocery store, ladies, or when you're making your grocery list, or when you're trying to remember to meal prep, like think about these things. The cost of groceries has probably almost doubled, I would say.
Yeah. Inflation took a major hit. Yeah.
I told my husband, I'm like, I bet we spend about 150 a week. And he's like, guaranteed it's 300. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Now I have to sit down and be more mindful.
Yeah, I know. And I have 2 teenagers, so that
Oh
it
my
just
goodness.
goes up
Yes,
from there.
it does. My 3-year-old, I bought 3 gallons of milk this week and it's already like pretty close to being gone. Okay, let's move on to number 2. Okay, number 1 was amazing. Number 2.
Number 2 is emergency fund. I think that this one gets bypassed because, I mean, just look at the statistics. Most people don't even have $1,000 in their savings account. And I'm such a believer in emergency fund because I don't know if everybody's like this or if it's just in my family, but we have emergencies that pop up constantly. My son broke his hand in the worst place possible last year, cost us $10,000. The year before, my daughter had the once in a, every, like the 1 in 3% or 3% of people that get their tonsils removed have this situation. Well, of course it was, my daughter. So we've had a lot of medical things. And then, my husband's vehicle got hailed and totaled out. And so there's just constantly things that come up. Whenever my husband leaves for an elk hunting trip, something with the house happens and I need to call an electrician or a plumber or, there's just constant. And so I think it's important that we have those emergency funds. Or heaven forbid, what if the breadwinner in the house can't work for a long duration of time? How are you going to pay those bills once the leave is over with, right? And so it's important that we acknowledge that emergencies happen and realize that we are responsible for our financial position when and if those emergencies do happen. And that's where having some kind of an emergency fund built up comes in. And again, start small. Don't act like you have to have it all saved up in 1 month. This is something that might take a year to accumulate. But having, 3 months, I say 1 to 6 because it depends on the individual, but 1 to 6 months of emergency bills saved up in an emergency fund is ideal for step number 2.
That's a good idea. Oh, wait, where was I just going? Oh, man. Sorry. Go ahead. It will come back to me. No. Yes. No. Yes. Okay, it's back. Also thinking about things like this. I love this. I love the emergency funds because it's about planning. What's that saying? Plan to fail to plan to fail, right?
Yeah.
It's taking control of the uncontrollables.
Yeah.
Taking ownership of your destiny. That's part of that is, guess what? Yeah, these things happen. Okay, I had an emergency C-section. Whoops. Right? My husband too was one of those lucky tonsils that turned into an overnight tonsillectomy into $97,000 later. We thought he was dying, right?
Yeah.
We had those same things. And so it's taking control of the uncontrollables. But I love that. And also making sure you have the right insurances. I just talked to one of my members yesterday about.
Oh, that's one of my steps.
Yeah. Oh, yay. Okay. Well, then I'm waiting. Okay. Number 3.
Pause that story. But I want to say with the emergency fund, though, I know this is a difficult thing to swallow, but I'm really big on if you don't have your emergency fund yet, all that fun Amazon spending really should be a hard no until that's built up.
Thank you. I love that you said that because I know that financial coaches, they do have to realize that different people have different spending. And obviously we're all different human beings, whatever. And we all live in different, it's all relative, right? To some person, I know my husband used to say his buddy had a Breitling watch. And so his dad thought that was so ridiculous. Who would want that? That's so ridiculous,
right.
But then here he is going on his Africa hunts and getting his mount and getting, right? It is literally the
My husband's gonna be like, who's her husband? Let's get together.
You know what I mean? So it's he just brought his elk and his axis deer home yesterday, and on his stories he has the funniest videos of them trying to get this thing up the stairway and through the doors, whatever. And I mean, it tore up.
Oh, we should have recorded ours. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, tore up the plaster, put holes in the wall. At one point it was literally stuck. with
Oh
the
my
with the
God.
antlers in the walls, right? And then here comes one of their other guys, and he's like, "Well, let's try turning it around." And it had a foot on each side of just going right in, just easy breezy, no big deal, just right through. And it was like,
Should have brought that guy in sooner. Oh
that
my
was so
gosh.
perfect. Anyway, okay, let's yeah, you will definitely talk about that later.
So step number 3 is to pay off high interest debt. So this is credit card debt. This is anything that's over an 8% on the loan or credit card or whatever that looks like for you. And the reason that we talk about that is because that is more than what you could get on your savings rate. So it's really important that we are paying off not only that, but oftentimes what we have on that high interest debt is a depreciating asset. So, if it's your closet full of stuff, if it's your kitchen full of stuff, whatever that looks like, it's really important that we come up with a plan. I like the snowball effect where you start with the smallest bill, regardless of interest rate. Start with the smallest one, wipe that out of the way, start with the next one, wipe that out of the way. If you struggle with credit cards like I used to, it's going to be really important to unfollow your favorite fashion or whatever influencers on social media because they are going to pop up constantly. I know that's hard to do, but at least for a short period of time, it's going to be important to cancel those credit cards like the, Best Buy or Express or whatever, Sephora, like all of these little credit cards. It's going to be important to cancel them and remove yourself from their mailing and email list because every time you open your email, you're going to get surprise, save $50 or save, 15% by spending however much. And you're still spending the $35, right? And so it's going to be really important to utilize those guardrails to help you set those boundaries until you get that high interest debt paid.
I love that you call them guardrails. That's perfect. That is absolutely put your blinders on. These people do not have your best interests at heart. They don't. They're doing their own thing. They're making a living, right? Honestly, this is their income coming in. And I tell my members and listeners, right? Stop following people that don't have your same values. If your value is budgeting, stop following all of these people that are spending, even organizers. You know what? I found it interesting that even decluttering, which is huge right now, I am part of that. I'm so in the world of get rid of the chaos. But then you follow these women and they're beautiful, beautiful spaces. And it's buy these totes, buy these, extra boxes, buy these drawer organizers, buy these. And it's like spend, 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 spend. It's like, I'm creating more. Do they understand? Yes, you're organizing clutter, but now you're creating more because you're putting more stuff in your home.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And it just ends up leaving you feeling less than. I'm not as organized as her. I'm not as fashionable as her. I don't have what she has. And why put that pressure on ourselves to live up to that when we simply just don't have to?
Right. Yeah. It takes us back to what your worth is. You have to find your value first. You have to identify your worth without all of these external things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So number 4 is risk assessment. And so I know these aren't the most, I should have came up with more fun
These aren't
words.
the most sexy. These aren't
They're
the most
not
sexy
things.
words.
But you know what? I come from the finance world and this is what we got right now. So I'll work on that. But
you're so funny.
So risk assessment, essentially it means your insurance. It means, are you protected if something bad happens, if the unthinkable happens? I'm a huge believer in life insurance. As I told you earlier, my brother passed away in a car accident. Thank God my parents had life insurance to pay off of his vehicle loan, to help them take some time off of work. I'm a huge believer in term insurance. There's a lot of whole life stuff out there that people are getting sold into that really should be saved for high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals. And so that's that's a soapbox of mine that I won't step on, but essentially we've got to have our bases covered. If we have children that depend on us, if we have spouses that we depend on or they depend on us, we need life insurance. We need at least 1 to 5 years of their income to be replaced with life insurance. And the cheapest, least expensive way to do that is with term insurance. And so that's going to be really important and know what your spouse has and know what you have on them. That's going to be really important too. I can't tell you the number of individuals that we've worked with that simply just don't know what they have. And so that's a very important piece of risk assessment. But also knowing what you have for liability. So for example, if you get into a vehicle accident and you have something called state minimums, meaning you're going to have just what the state requires you to have. So if you have $25,000 of insurance and you cause some horrific accident and it's a $500,000 incident when it's all said and done, you're responsible for $475,000 of cash, right? And so it's really important that we understand what our insurance means on our vehicle, on our home. If we have assets in the bank, we need to protect those with liability like umbrellas and things like that. And that's especially important when we have loved ones that we're caring about. It's important that, under this risk assessment, I also like to be sure that we have plan for our children if something were to happen to us. All of those things are so important. So having wills in place and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. We were talking about even thinking about things because we own a wood mill, thinking about things like what if one of our shop guys gets injured in the shop, right? What if or not even injured in the shop because you've got workman's comp for those kinds of things. But what if he's needs to be physically fit, construction worker or whatever you're doing. And then all of a sudden you get a diagnosis for MS or something that eventually is going to take your body or the way that you can use your body away from you. You've got to think about these kinds of things. And that's such a doomsdayer type thing, but I love it because again, fail to plan to fail, right? This is taking control of your own destiny. I actually created in my community a death book. I created a death book. So now everybody has a book where they have all of their important information so that if anything were to happen, they could just grab the book and it's all there.
Yeah, that's a really great idea for sure. Yep. Did you have a story you wanted to talk about? I know you were starting to talk about.
It wasn't even a story. We were just talking about an incident with her. And I said, have you ever heard of this insurance where it's going to pay you now what you would have been making in your office that because something happens to you or your husband or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. There's all sorts of different kinds of insurances and things you need to think about. If I depend on my husband, like he's a firefighter or he's depending on his body or I'm depending on my body to make an income because of the use of my body.
Yep.
I have to. I actually said it to my friend. She's got a special needs son and he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And she's my size. She's our size. She's tiny little thing, but she is so physically fit. And I said, you have to be. You have to be. There's got to be programs for you because if your back goes out, you guys are done for because you don't have a nurse. You don't have anybody helping you take care of him. Yeah. So yeah.
And that's essentially, you brought up a really good point too with this category is there are a lot of us out there who have, I have a visually impaired daughter and she's going to need special equipment and special needs throughout her lifetime. And it's really important that when we are, designing our wills and designing our life insurance plans, that we are considering that we are putting into place care for those individuals when they are older because nobody's going to be able to care for them like we can, right? But it's going to be very important. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about on the risk assessment piece is health insurance. We've seen, I've talked to you about our medical experience as you've talked to us about ours, but anyone could easily have a not so great diagnosis that could be hundreds, if not millions of dollars. And, things could easily take your emergency reserves in an instant, especially living in America, with the cost of health. And if you're young and healthy, now is a great time to get the life insurances, to make sure you're covered with health insurance. If you don't have any opportunity to have health insurance coverage, most of us do, but some of us have pre-existing conditions. Healthcare.gov is a great option for that. So health insurance and things like that are hugely important, because medical bankruptcy is a big thing, and it does happen. And so that is number 4, as far as, getting our financial picture together to make sure that we're aware of everything. And then number 5 is contributions. This is what's going to really help with our financial freedom down the road. If you're, a stay-at-home mom, if you are, a contributing wife to your financial picture, it's going to be so important that you are completely aware of what your contributions look like. What does your investment look like? So many of us turn a blind eye to what that looks like. Oh, my husband takes care of that. In fact, there are 24% of financial planners are female, right? Out of the 100%, 24% of us are female. And so that just shows us that there is very little awareness on the financial side of what we need to know for finances. Right. And I think contribution in order to build your financial freedom at some point in your life is huge.
I think somewhere along the road for me, I obviously, like you said, there's 24% of women who don't feel the same way. But for me, it was kind of like, you don't need to worry about this, right? You don't, which is so funny, because homemaking is all about running a household.
Yeah.
But the emphasis is not there. The emphasis is not on the money. The kind of idea that you're going to marry this husband and he's going to take care of you financially and you're going to take care of the home. It's not a teamwork, right? Mm-hmm. Which I'm so glad now the narrative has changed. It is. Yeah. And whether it's because you want to do that and you're becoming more aware, or it's because it's a necessity because you have to have 2 incomes. This is now a day and age where having 1 income is like, good luck.
It's difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is difficult. You have to basically go without in order to live and survive, unless you're, doing really well. But so that's more also what I feel like my problem was it was modeled to me. My mom was so good. She always balanced her checkbook. She was so good in those ways, but I just kind of assumed I would marry someone and he would take it over. Mm-hmm. So what are other ways? I want to pick your brain, because my brain can only go so far of what I know. But what are other ways tips and tricks to kind of finding that money, the money? If you have a set money budget, right? You have a set income. That's the word I'm trying to say. If you have this set income, how can women, like, we want to go on a vacation, right? Like, one of our goals is to be able to do that. Or we want to save up for a new car, or we want to have another baby and we want to prepare these emergency funds or whatever. Where are the little holes that they can be looking into?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to really lay it all out there. Look through. This is, again, goes back to my Financial Friday that I literally have every single week at 9 a.m. on the dot on Fridays. Maybe yours is 7 p.m. I don't know what that time looks like for you, but I love Financial Fridays because it's so easy to think. It's kind of like, I did really good on my diet today, but I'm discounting the 2 bites of macaroni and cheese that I had off my kid's plate, or the chicken nugget that I stole, or the handful of goldfish crackers that I just shoved in my mouth, right? Like, we forget oftentimes about these little things that we spent money on, especially over the holidays. But we tend to forget. So I love to I know a lot of people like to go in and do their and buy their groceries, but I love the grocery pickup apps because it allows me to stay within my budget. Now, I I really don't like oftentimes the produce that they pick out for me. They're getting better, but I love the pickup app because it allows me to see I'm at $147 and my budget this week is $150. I have to stop there, right? And so it's a hard stop when you're in the grocery store and you're just shoving stuff in the cart. It's really difficult to keep tallies of how much you've spent. And so the grocery pickup app, at least to get your budget set on straight, or if you're on a strict budget for a while, that is a good tool to be able to utilize. A couple of things is to budget without budgeting. I love this method because I am not, again, a dot the I's, cross the T's kind of person. So what I do, and this has worked for so many, but I just utilize my credit card for what it is. I give myself a arbitrary limit. Let's say $3,000, for example. I know when my statement date processes, so when that limit starts over again, and that is when that limit is met, it's met. I put groceries on there. I put my Amazon shopping on there. I put my Sephora on there. Everything goes on there. And if I blew it all in the first 10 days, well, that sucks. I should do better next month, right? But ultimately, that budget without budgeting kind of, again, goes back to the guardrail piece, but it keeps me in check. Lets me go on the date with my husband. It lets me do the things that I want to do, but yet it keeps me in check. And then if I'm checking every Friday to see, okay, what did I spend all week? That has been very helpful as well.
That goes back to when we very first started this process was the Dave Ramsey envelopes. We had the envelope system. We had cash and that was it. This is my cash. So I physically could see it. So even bring it down, I physically could see $100 in here. And it's like, what does this need to do for this amount of time? And then you get down to seeing like the bills getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh boy.
Yeah.
So that is very impactful. It takes us back to your number one in awareness, and it's having eyes on what's going on, having eyes, because it really is, the money just goes. We all know that. We all know with spending, the money just goes. It's like, wait, where did it go? I don't know. Well, it went somewhere. Go look. Go see where it went.
Well, I mean, it's just like I saw, and I wish I would have saved it, but I saw a meme or whatever the other day. It was like, I just spent $250 on groceries and I'm going to order a pizza because I'm too tired to cook. It's just, it's like, I totally get the feeling.
Feel that. But I feel that. I won't do it, but I feel it.
Totally.
So what other tricks? I've got these. Okay, so mine here, let me help. Like, yes, the grocery app, 100,000% agree. Do not go in that store. You will, no matter what, even if you have your grocery list and you are like, I will not defer off this grocery list. You will, because you'll pass something and be like, oh, well, that's sort of low, but I'll just get it anyway. Or you'll see something that's an emotional buy and you'll buy it, right? You will buy it. So do not go in the store. I am with you on that one. Also, one that people don't ever think about, get your Christmas shopping done in June. I mean, if that is even a possibility for you, have it done, have it put away so that when Christmas comes and all of this like marketing propaganda, they pay hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to know exactly how to target you, people that are last minute shoppers, and you're running through the store, emotional buying. Oh, they need this. Oh, they need that. And have a list attached to it that's like done, 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 done. Boom. That's another one. Also, Poshmark. What about Poshmark? These apps where you can sell these items that you're getting rid of. Yes, donate. Like, I am a big supporter of donate. We have Deseret Industries is like our religion here, and that's a donation place. But also, if you have a great pair of shoes, like we all know we do, that we wore twice, put them on Poshmark. Someone else is going to love those. I literally found under my bed that I'm embarrassed to say this, cleaned out from under my bed finally after we've lived here 11 years. And I found a pair of snowboarding boots, Nike snowboarding boots I wore once, covered in dust, disgusting. Just sold them on eBay for $500.
Yeah.
Yay. They have been under that bed for 11 years. Now all of a sudden Nike is just like the coolest thing ever. And there you go.
Yeah.
So thinking about things like this.
Yeah, definitely can resell. I think the best thing is to be prepared, and then be consistent. So those are my two biggest things because when we're prepared, when we have a plan in place, when we know what our goals are, that can put hard lines in the sand. And I think that oftentimes we can just dig ourselves out. Yes, we can sell things. Yes, we can look for the tips and tricks, but I think ultimately there comes a time too when our time is valuable. And a lot of times we just need to be consistent because I think we get into these resolution times and I think we try to go from 0 to 10 overnight. And if we would have just hung out around a 6 the entire year, we'd be so much better off than trying to be at a 10 and making it to mid-February and then fizzling out again. So I'm a big fan of just kind of hanging out at a 6 or a 7 all the time. And then I don't ever have to go backwards. And so that's kind of really, I would really hold on to that number one, the awareness piece, the planning, the setting your goals so you know why you're doing it, long-term, short-term, both. Being completely aware of your finances in your home because there's nothing more powerful than awareness. It's like when we avoid the scale, when we avoid the skinny jeans, we're avoiding the mess, right? We're avoiding how bad it really is. And so when we're just completely 100% aware, we are in control of that.
Yeah. That's a powerful statement you just made. We are in control of that. We are in control. Who doesn't want to be in control of anything in their life? Who doesn't want to be in control? So it just goes back to taking the accountability, right? Taking this into your own hands and being the driver of your own car, if you will, the boat, whatever, just being the one that's determining where your life ends up.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of women out there that really do want to allow their husband to be that protector and provider role. And I think that's amazing. But I still think that you are doing a disservice to your family if you're not involved and aware and able to take over if needed.
But and that just goes back to the what ifs. Like what if? Yeah. What if something happened to him and he wasn't able to do it? And you're this, we just went through it a few years ago with Rick's grandparents and he passed away unexpectedly and she's going, I have no idea what anything is. He did everything. Mm-hmm. He did everything for their entire marriage. So, and she's going, maybe there's something somewhere. And my mother-in-law, they had to wait for months. You know how long it would take to figure out exactly what bills. I mean, I think it was 3 months worth of full statements to finally figure out what things were missing and all the missing pieces and everything. So if that doesn't do it for you guys, I don't know what does. My husband is that way. He takes control. He controls the money, but I know he talks about it. He talks about it incessantly, like all the time, to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm shutting off now. I'm shutting off. No, but we communicate, and that I love these steps. These are perfect. Thank you so much. Where can my listeners come find you? Because you had too many good things, and I know that they're going to need a place to come find you.
Yeah, absolutely. The best place is going to be on Instagram at @thefitfinancial_. I had to get that underscore because somebody already had the name.
And we will put that in the show notes too, so that they don't have to look too far. If you guys are on the app, you will put it in the show notes. Thank you so much, Amanda. This was perfect. This is exactly what I wanted for this episode. And I'm so glad that you were able to meet with me here.